Beijing, how's the eye? Looks like it's healing up nice.
A young Chinese boy named Li had just arrived in New York City, only to be humiliated on his very first day by a group of local karate punks. They taunted him relentlessly, mocking his accent and appearance, until they pushed things too far. What they didn't know was that Li's grandfather wasn't just any old man, and they were about to regret crossing him.
Beijing, how's the eye? Looks like it's healing up nice.
Back in Beijing, Li's grandfather, Master Han, had been a revered kung fu instructor, a true shifu. But Li's mother, Mei, wanted nothing to do with martial arts. She had already lost her eldest son to violence, and she wasn't about to let history repeat itself. Han begged her to let the boy continue his training, but Mei refused. "You practice violence. You get violence in return," she said firmly. To escape their past, Mei took a job in New York and made plans for them to start fresh. Li protested, wanting to stay behind with his grandfather, but his mother's decision was final. "New city, new language," she insisted when he asked why she was forcing him to speak English. Their new home was a cramped apartment in Chinatown. On his first evening, Li wandered the unfamiliar streets and stopped at a small pizzeria for dinner. But instead of kindness, he was met with smirks and mockery from the staff. His accent, his clothes, even his simple request for something as harmless as extra napkins drew laughter. A kind waitress named Mia stepped in to help, apologizing for the rude employees. That was their first meeting. Adjusting to American life wasn't easy. Every day was a challenge. Strange food, confusing customs, and the feeling of being invisible. But fate soon gave him an unexpected ally. On his way home from school, Li saw the same girl, Mia, struggling with some heavy boxes outside the pizza shop and offered to help. She smiled and introduced herself properly this time. "Remember me?" he said shyly. "From the pizza place?" "Yeah, right," she laughed. From that day, a quiet friendship began to grow. As they spent more time together, Li became fascinated by the students' training at a nearby karate dojo. "You study karate or something?" one of them asked mockingly. "Kung fu," Li replied without thinking. "I used to." But Mia quickly warned him to stay away from that gym. "Seriously, don't train there," she whispered. "You can't." The dojo's owner, a ruthless man named Osha, ran things more like a street gang than a school. He was also the one her father owed money to. And worse, her ex-boyfriend Connor trained there too. When Connor saw Mia talking to Li, jealousy flickered across his face. "Replaced me already, huh?" he sneered, before knocking one of his friends down with a brutal kick to prove a point. Trying to protect her from more trouble, Li pretended to be Mia's boyfriend. Later, when he haggled with a vendor at a Chinese shop and managed to cut the price in half, Mia couldn't help but laugh. "You're good at this," she said, and agreed to show him around the city. "It's not a date," she insisted, as they rode her scooter through the busy streets. "It's an educational experience." But their fun ended abruptly when the scooter broke down, forcing them onto the subway. There, fate, or bad luck, brought Connor back into their path. "Who's your friend?" Connor smirked. "Hey, Li," he said mockingly. Mia tried to keep the peace, but Connor's jealousy boiled over. He cornered Li, taunting him again. "You know Kung Fu, Beijing?" he sneered. Li stood up for Mia, but the moment ended with Connor's fist slamming into his face. Mia tried to intervene, yelling, "Connor, stop!" But it was too late. Li's eye was already swelling. Later that night, Li came home with a black eye. His mom was furious. Their neighbor Victor, a former local boxing champion, helped him cover up the bruise. "Ice it before bed," he said, "then use a tea bag in the morning." Works every time. But his mother's rule was non-negotiable: no fighting. She believed there was always a peaceful way out. She introduced Li to a tutor named Alan, hoping to steer him toward college and away from violence. But Li's heart wasn't in it. His mind drifted back to his late brother. The one who had taught him the legendary dragon leap technique before dying in a street fight. He had tried the move once himself and ended up flat on his back. The next day, Connor was waiting for him outside school. "How's the eye? Healing up nice?" he mocked again. Lee clenched his fists and accepted the challenge. Connor smirked. "You really want to do this, Beijing? I could beat you without even using my hands." And he wasn't bluffing. Using only his legs, Connor swept Lee's feet out from under him and slammed him into the ground. Lee tried to recover, attempting the praying mantis jump his brother once showed him, but Connor dodged easily, landing another kick that dropped Lee flat. Laughing, Connor leaned in and whispered, "Fight me at the 5 Districts Cup. No teachers, no cops, just us." That evening, OSHA's thugs came looking for revenge. Victor stepped in but was struck in the head and knocked out cold. Lee was their next target, but this time his instincts kicked in. Using what kung fu he still remembered, he fought back, unpolished but effective. He disarmed one attacker, dodged another, and sent the group scrambling away, humiliated. "Let's get out of here," one of them shouted. But OSHA wasn't done. He tightened the pressure on Victor, who finally confessed the truth. "I borrowed money from people you don't want to owe," he admitted. "They don't forgive debts." Victor had once been a promising boxer, but when his daughter Mia was born, he gave up the ring for a quiet life, making pizza. "Most people don't know the exact moment their life changes," he told Lee softly. "I get to see mine every day." Still, a spark of that old fighter remained. Winning a tournament could give him the money he needed to pay off OSHA for good, but he needed Lee's help. "You teach me what you know, the speed, the balance, the way you move." Unsure, Lee called his grandfather back in Beijing. "Should I really teach him?" he asked. "Sharing your knowledge is never wrong," Master Han replied. "Pass it on." Training began the next day. Lee criticized Victor's slow punches and clumsy footwork, but Victor shot back, "If you're so good, why don't you make me better?" So they sparred. Mia walked in mid-session, shocked to see her father training again. "You're fighting?" "Really?" she said, exasperated. "And you're training him?" She stormed off, afraid history would repeat itself. But Lee was determined. He hung a portrait of Master Han on the wall like a sacred guardian. "We honor him like a god," he said. He pushed Victor relentlessly, training during pizza shifts, on the subway, even while kneading dough. "Squat, don't burn the crust," he barked. Slowly, Victor began to regain his rhythm. As their bond grew, Lee opened up about his brother's death, how they'd been attacked after a tournament, and how guilt had haunted him ever since. Soon after, Mia invited Lee to an Italian food festival. "It's not a date," she teased, but when he arrived, she was chatting and laughing with Connor. Jealousy burned through him. "Who's that?" he asked coldly. "Told you, we're just friends," she said, but he didn't believe her. Meanwhile, Victor trained harder than ever, determined to prove himself. When Lee returned to the gym, distracted and angry, Victor snapped, "Focus, kid. Leave your drama outside." Later, Mia came to apologize. "Sometimes we do stupid things," she said. "I told him it was over because I met someone I want to make new mistakes with." She almost kissed Lee, then stopped herself, flustered. "Oh my God, really?" Lee stammered, and they both laughed awkwardly. But soon, laughter turned to chaos. The night of the big fight had come. Victor stepped into the ring, determination written across his bruised face. From the sidelines, OSHA watched with a sinister grin. One of his cronies muttered that he'd placed a heavy bet against Victor, confident the old man wouldn't last a round. Lee stood in Victor's corner, whispering words of encouragement. "Be water, not stone," he said quietly. "Flow with it." Victor had promised Mia he'd win, and for a brief moment it looked like he might. He entered the match with fierce energy, jabbing and weaving like the boxer he once was. But his opponent, a younger, faster fighter trained by OSHA, broke through his defense easily. Punch after punch landed, and the crowd began to murmur. Then, out of nowhere, Victor landed a solid cross. The impact sent his opponent sprawling to the mat. For a moment, the old fire returned to his eyes. Lee yelled from the corner, "Repeat the technique." Victor followed his advice, regaining momentum. His rival stumbled. Victory seemed close, until Osha shouted an order. In an instant, the other fighter abandoned sportsmanship. He drove his elbow into Victor's head again and again, until the referee pulled him away. Victor collapsed, unconscious. Panic erupted. He was rushed to the hospital, leaving Lee frozen in horror. The scene was too familiar. He'd lived it before, the night his brother died. Back home, May scolded her son through tears. "I told you, no fighting," she cried. But Lee wasn't listening. Guilt consumed him. He stopped answering his grandfather's calls, wandering through the city aimlessly, drowning in regret. One night, when he finally returned home, he sensed someone inside the apartment. The lights were off. A shadow moved. Before he could react, a figure lunged and struck him with precise kung fu blows. Lee blocked clumsily, falling backward, until the attacker stepped into the light. It was Grandpa Han. "Now you see me, huh?" Han said with a mischievous smile. Lee's mother, however, was furious. She hadn't invited her uncle and didn't want him reigniting Lee's obsession with fighting. But Han had other plans. He believed destiny had brought him to New York, not to visit, but to guide his grandson. Meanwhile, Mia avoided Lee, overwhelmed by guilt and fear for her father. Victor, pale but alive, refused to blame the boy. "It's not your fault," he said softly. But his problems weren't over. Osha's men still wanted their money. "If I don't pay up soon," Victor muttered, "we're all finished." "Then I'll help," Han interrupted. "In my country, we say, a friend's problem is my problem." The plan was simple. Lee would fight in the 5 Streets tournament and win the prize money to clear Victor's debt. Han declared, "You will fight," and gave them 10 days to prepare. To improve his grandson's chances, Han visited an old friend, Daniel LaRusso, the former student of Mr. Miyagi. They met inside Miyagi's old dojo, where the smell of rice wine still hung in the air. "I want Lee to learn Miyagi karate," Han said. Daniel agreed, though he warned, "You can't master it in a week." Training began immediately. Lee's sessions were brutal. His grandfather mixed old-school kung fu drills with Daniel's karate precision. "No mercy," Han barked as Lee stumbled through endless repetitions. "You fall, you rise again." Across town, Connor was training too, under Osha's ruthless eye. "We don't fight for points," Osha growled. "We fight to kill." Mia discovered Lee's plan and panicked. She begged him not to fight, but when she learned he was doing it for her father, she fell silent. Her feelings grew complicated, half fear, half admiration. As the tournament approached, Lee's progress astonished even Daniel. "He's got your spirit," Daniel told Han one evening, "and your stubbornness." The day of the 5 Boroughs tournament arrived. The event was set in a rough neighborhood courtyard, surrounded by roaring spectators. Fighters from all over the city had gathered, but all eyes were on 2 names, Connor, the reigning champion, and the newcomer from Chinatown, Lee. Lee's first opponent was a giant named Buddha Stevenson. The rules were simple, first to 8 points or knockout. Buddha laughed when he saw Lee's small frame. But seconds later, Lee's foot connected with his chest, sending him sprawling. KO in 1 strike. The crowd went wild. Round after round, Lee advanced, each victory sharper and more confident than the last. Meanwhile, Connor tore through his own opponents with ruthless aggression. It was clear the two were destined to meet. At the hospital, Victor made a miraculous recovery and checked out just in time to watch his protege compete. By now, Lee was in the semifinals, and after another clean win, he secured his place in the grand finale against Connor. That night, Osha's men tried to ambush Lee in an alley, but Han and Daniel intercepted them. The 2 masters stood back to back, dispatching the thugs with lightning precision. "Old men still got it," Daniel joked. The final match was set 1 week later, with a $50,000 prize on the line. Daniel studied Connor's previous fights and suggested a strategy. Use Connor's own rage against him. Han disagreed, wanting Lee to rely on discipline and inner calm. Their arguments fueled the training intensity. Lee practiced new moves everywhere he could, jumping between subway poles, flipping through narrow alleys, turning bruises into lessons. Finally, he perfected his secret weapon, the flying dragon sweep, a technique that combined kung fu agility with karate precision. The night of the championship arrived. The rooftop arena buzzed with energy. Even May was there, her eyes full of fear and pride. "Your brother would be proud," she whispered. Han nodded. "2 branches, 1 tree," he said, a reminder that strength and compassion were inseparable. Connor entered first, confident and grinning. He had beaten a Chinese fighter before, and he planned to do it again. When the referee shouted, "Fight!" Connor struck instantly, spinning hook kicks straight to the face. Lee stumbled back, absorbing hit after hit. 2 points, 3. Then a crushing kick to the ribs. The crowd roared. Connor was dominant, but Lee refused to give in. He steadied his breathing, remembered his training, and countered with a lightning-fast combination. First point, then another. The score climbed to 4-1. Lee's rhythm changed. He was no longer reacting, he was predicting. Every block, every strike flowed seamlessly. Connor's smirk faded. The match tied at 7-7. The next hit would decide everything. Connor charged with a flying kick, aiming for Lee's head, the same move that had ended countless fights before. But this time, Lee didn't leap back. He dove underneath, sweeping Connor's legs from below, then rose with a powerful strike to his chest. The impact sent Connor crashing to the floor. Silence. Then applause thundered across the rooftop. Lee had won. But Connor, humiliated, refused to accept defeat. He attacked from behind in a blind rage. Lee reacted instinctively, flipping him over and pinning him down. One final strike could have ended it, but Grandpa Han stepped in, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Mercy, Lee," he said. "That is true strength." Lee lowered his fist. The crowd erupted again, chanting his name. Afterward, life began to bloom anew. Victor paid off his debts and expanded the pizzeria. "We're gonna miss you, Shifu," he joked to Lee. Alan found steady work and peace. Even May smiled again, finally proud of her son's courage. Han prepared to return home. "Come visit Beijing," he said. "We opened 3rd location." Lee grinned. "You got the money, I got the time." And just like that, a boy once beaten and lost in a foreign city became a champion, not just in the ring, but in spirit. If you liked this story, smash that like button and subscribe. More incredible tales are waiting for you right here.